Toyota just pulled the plug on a billion-dollar U.S. project. Honda's slashing jobs, and 840,000 American workers hanging by a thread. Trump's tariffs were meant to protect, but instead they've triggered a corporate exodus. Japanese giants are leaving, factories are freezing, small-town America is panicking, and while Wall Street watches the collapse, Tokyo is already betting elsewhere. This isn't policy, it's economic self-destruction. And what comes next will shock the world. For over 70 years, Japan wasn't just an ally, it was a builder of American jobs. Companies like Toyota, Honda, Nissan, and Subaru didn't just sell cars to the U.S., they built massive factories in states like Kentucky, Texas, Indiana, and Alabama. These plants produced over 3.3 million vehicles in 2024 alone, almost all for American buyers. Japanese automakers invested over $66.4 billion into the U.S. economy, creating strong middle-class jobs and stable tax revenue. As of 2024, nearly 840,000 American workers depend directly or indirectly on Japan's auto industry, working in plants, offices, dealerships, and parts supply. These jobs fund schools, roads, and hospitals. But instead of being rewarded, Japan now faces crushing tariffs. Washington's message? Loyalty doesn't matter. And for Japan, that stings. They followed the rules, made the investments, and now find themselves punished by the very country they trusted. In July 2025, everything changed. The Trump campaign rolled out a massive 25% tariff on Japanese-made vehicles, calling them a national security threat. But for Japan, this wasn't just business, it was personal. After decades of trust, investment, and cooperation, this hit like a punch in the face. The timing couldn't be worse. Japanese automakers were pouring billions into U.S. electric vehicle production. Now those projects are frozen. Japan's prime minister called the move extremely regrettable and warned of serious diplomatic consequences. Finance leaders in Tokyo warned that these tariffs could destabilize not just Japan, but the entire global supply chain. Even U.S. stocks felt the shock. The Nasdaq 100 plunged 4.7% in 2 days after Trump's initial tariff wave. These tariffs weren't just a policy shift. They were a warning shot, a signal that loyalty might no longer mean protection. And now Japan isn't just upset, they're ready to retaliate in ways that could shake the foundation of America's auto economy. After the U.S. tariff hit, Toyota warned it expects $7.7 billion lower profits in the 2025 fiscal year, with tariffs directly costing $1.4 billion in just April and May. In July 2025, Toyota also raised U.S. prices by about $270 per vehicle, a sign their costs are being passed to buyers. Over at Honda, executives now expect net profit to fall 70% in fiscal 2026 due to tariff impacts, dropping to $1.7 billion from around $5.6 billion. Meanwhile, Nissan is cutting global headcount by 9,000 jobs to reduce costs, and is even exploring transferring U.S. production to partner Honda at its Mississippi plant. These shifts are strategic, not emotional. They signal that Japan's automakers no longer see the U.S. as a stable place for long-term investment. Factories are slowing, projects are paused, and while Toyota and Honda still sell most of their vehicles in America, they're quietly moving their next growth moves to Southeast Asia and beyond. What's happening now is more than a reaction. It's the start of a major shift with millions of U.S. jobs and entire communities hanging in the balance. The fallout from these tariffs isn't stopping with Toyota and Honda. It's already rippling through the entire U.S. economy. Over 840,000 American jobs are directly or indirectly tied to Japanese automakers. assembly workers, parts suppliers, dealerships, and logistics teams. When these companies pull back, entire communities feel the hit. In Kentucky, Alabama, and Ohio, where Japanese plants are major employers, job cuts are already being reported. And it's not just jobs. These companies pay over $30 billion in U.S. taxes each year, funding schools, roads, and hospitals. If they leave or downsize, local governments lose big. On Wall Street, the damage is showing. After the tariff news broke, auto stocks dropped by 4.7% in just 2 days, wiping out billions in market value. Even U.S. firms like GM felt the pain, reporting a $1.1 billion earnings hit tied directly to tariffs, with shares falling 8% in 1 day. Analysts warn this could just be the beginning. Because once factories start closing, it's not just cars that vanish. It's paychecks, pensions, and entire middle-class towns that start falling apart. This fight isn't just about cars. It's a global battle over electric vehicles and next-gen tech. The U.S. is pressuring Japan to stop exporting its advanced chip-making machines to China, tools that power everything from electric cars to smartphones to missile systems. In return, the U.S. slapped Japan with auto tariffs, using them as economic leverage to control the chip supply chain. Meanwhile, China's EV giants like BYD, NIO, and XPENG are rising fast. BYD alone sold 4.27 million EVs in 2024, now leading the global market and outpacing Tesla. EV sales worldwide jumped 25%, reaching 17 million units, with China making up over 60% of that growth. At the same time, Japanese firms like Tokyo Electron and Nikon control about 30% of global chip-making equipment, making them key players in this tech war. Now, Japan is cornered. Siding with the U.S. means risking trade with China, its largest export partner. But defying Washington could bring even harsher tariffs. This isn't just about profits anymore. It's about power, alliances, and who controls the future of electric mobility. And in this global EV war, Japan is the kingmaker being pulled in both directions. Japan isn't waiting around. As the U.S. slaps tariffs and pushes chip restrictions, Japanese automakers are quietly shifting their focus away from America and deeper into Asia. Toyota recently inked a $2 billion deal to build a new EV plant in Shanghai, its third major investment in China this year. Mazda is investing $150 million in Thailand to produce 100,000 electric SUVs annually. These moves aren't just money-saving, they're survival strategies in stable political climates. In countries like Thailand and Vietnam, governments offer tax breaks, subsidies, and no tariffs, unlike America. Vietnam's EV market is projected to hit $2.9 billion in 2025, as local makers and VinFast ramp up production. Japan is now building new trade routes, forging ties with ASEAN nations, and eyeing India as the next big market. Quietly but surely, Japan is pulling back from U.S. factories and redirecting its future growth. And once these new plants are up and running, it will be very hard for America to bring them back. While politicians argue and companies shift overseas, it's small-town America that's getting crushed. In places like Georgetown, Kentucky, and Greensburg, Indiana, families depend on the same Japanese auto plants that are now freezing jobs and cutting hours. These aren't just factories, they're lifelines for schools, diners, gas stations, and grocery stores. When Toyota pulls back or Honda slows production, the whole town feels it. People are scared, some already lost their jobs, others are waiting for the next layoff. And while Washington talks trade deals, thousands of everyday Americans are left wondering how they'll pay their bills next month. This may only be the beginning of something much bigger. Japan has already paused all new trade talks with the U.S. after missing a critical July 9th deadline for tariff relief. Tokyo's top negotiator warned clearly, no trade deal will move forward unless the auto tariffs are lifted first. Meanwhile, China's Commerce Ministry is calling for a return to sustainable trade, offering Japan smoother deals, less pressure, and faster access to Asian markets. And now South Korea and India are paying close attention, worried they could be next if Washington continues to weaponize tariffs. At home, the numbers are getting worse. Japan's car exports to the U.S. dropped 27% in June, part of an ongoing 11-month slide that's already affecting factories, ports, and workers on both sides of the Pacific. Analysts warn that Wall Street will likely see deeper losses if Japan redirects more investments to Asia. American towns could lose not just future factories, but schools, hospitals, and jobs built around them. Japan is already drawing new maps for trade. And if Washington doesn't act fast, the U.S. may wake up to find its closest ally and its economic future slipping away. America thought it was winning the trade war, but it may have just lost its strongest ally and thousands of jobs. Subscribe now to stay ahead as this global shift unfolds.